Have you ever stood up too fast, lost your balance a little, and felt your heart skip a beat? Maybe you brushed it off, telling yourself you were just tired or moved too quickly. But somewhere deep down, a thought stuck with you. What if that tiny stumble had been worse? What if it happens when no one's around to help? For many older adults, especially those living alone, this is more than just a passing thought. It's a daily concern. And if you've ever been told you have low bone density or osteoporosis, you know how real that risk can feel. But here's the good news: you're not powerless. You don't have to live in fear of every step, every movement, every awkward reach. You can move smart, and you can move safely. In this video, we're going to talk about how to do exactly that. Not just general exercise tips, not just stay active advice, we're going deeper. We'll talk about why osteoporosis can sneak up on people, what kinds of movements are riskier than you might think, and how small changes in how you move every day can protect your bones and your confidence. We're also going to walk through some real-life examples, including a woman who turned her diagnosis into a calling. Her story might change the way you think about your own body. Let's start with something that surprises a lot of people. Osteoporosis is often called a silent disease. That's because it doesn't come with pain or warning signs in the beginning. You can't feel your bones getting thinner. One day you're cleaning the house, maybe reaching into a cabinet, or stepping off a curb, and then something gives. That's usually when people first find out they even have osteoporosis after a fracture. By that point, the damage has already started. But it doesn't have to get to that point. You can do something before it happens. And that's what this whole video is about. Let me introduce you to Alison. She's not a fitness influencer, and she's not a doctor. She's a woman in her 60s who noticed something important: her mother had osteoporosis, and Alison knew she might be at risk too. She went in for a bone density scan, just to be safe. And the results showed she had osteoporosis herself. It shook her. Not just the diagnosis, but what it meant for the way she lived her life. She was active, independent, always on the move. And suddenly she found herself afraid to bend, afraid to twist, afraid to move the way she used to. She even stopped reaching for things overhead or picking up things off the floor. That fear started to shrink her world. But Alison didn't let it stay that way. She had a background in movement, specifically in Pilates, and she decided to use it. She dove into the science, the safety guidelines, the biomechanics of how to protect the spine and joints. And then she built something out of all that knowledge. She created a program called Move Smart, not to help people exercise harder, but to help them move wiser. Now, let's talk about the 5 key areas Alison focuses on in her method. We'll go through each one, what it means, why it matters, a real story behind it, and how you can apply it right now. The first one is spinal safety. This is huge. As we get older, the bones in our spine, especially the vertebrae in the upper and middle back, can become fragile. One wrong bend forward, and the pressure can cause tiny fractures. That's why learning how to bend safely is a top priority. A lot of us are used to bending from the waist, rounding the back, letting gravity pull us down when we pick something up. But for someone with osteoporosis, that motion can be dangerous. Instead, it's safer to bend from the hips, keeping the back flat, or to lower yourself by squatting with support. Alison had a client named Susan. Susan loved gardening. But after her diagnosis, she stopped. She was afraid of bending over, afraid of hurting her spine. Alison worked with her on posture, teaching her how to hinge from the hips, how to use a small stool instead of crouching low, and how to keep her spine protected even while weeding. A few weeks later, Susan was back in her garden, smiling, confident, and pain-free. The second focus area is joint mobility. You've probably felt it: the stiffness in the shoulders, the tightness in the hips, that little catch in your knee when you get up. As we age, our joints naturally lose flexibility. But when we stop moving, they stiffen faster. The trick is to move gently, consistently, and with purpose. Alison teaches what she calls micromovements. These are simple, circular motions like rolling your ankles, moving your wrists, opening and closing your hands, that keep your joints healthy without strain. One woman in her group, named Evelyn, started doing wrist circles while watching her morning news. At first, it felt silly. But after a couple of weeks, her hands were less stiff, and she could open jars again without help. Sometimes it's the little things that tell you something's working. The third area is core strength. Now don't worry, this isn't about doing sit-ups or crunches. When Alison says core, she means the deep muscles that support your spine, your lower belly, your back, even your pelvic floor. These muscles help you stay upright, keep your balance, and absorb shock when you move. Without a strong core, even getting out of a chair can become risky. One of Alison's group members, Martha, had a habit of pushing off the armrests every time she stood up. She didn't realize it was because her core muscles were weak. After a few weeks of seated exercises, things like pressing her palms into her thighs while breathing deeply, she noticed something. She could stand up without using her hands. That little change made her feel stronger than she had in years. Let's pause here for a moment. Because I know that for many people, the idea of movement after a diagnosis like osteoporosis can feel overwhelming. It's easy to think, I should just be still, stay safe, avoid anything risky. But here's the truth, avoiding movement altogether can be just as risky, sometimes even more. That's why the goal isn't to move more, it's to move smart. And in the next part of this video, we'll talk about 2 more movement areas that are just as important, balance and hip strength. You'll hear more real-life stories, and we'll break down simple strategies you can start using right away. So stick with me, because what's coming next might change the way you move for the rest of your life. Now, let's talk about balance. We don't usually notice it, until we lose it. One moment, you're walking just fine. The next, you're hesitating before stepping off a curb, or reaching for the wall when you turn too fast. It creeps up slowly, like a shadow. And the truth is, once balance becomes shaky, so does your confidence. You stop trusting your steps. You move more carefully. You start saying no to simple things, like walking to the mailbox when it's wet out, or joining your neighbor for a stroll after dinner. But here's something nobody told most of us growing up. Balance is trainable. It's not something you either have or don't. You can get better at it. At any age. Now Alison, the physical therapist I mentioned earlier, always started with something so simple, it almost felt silly. Just standing on one foot while brushing your teeth. That's it. 1 foot. 2 minutes. Every day. The first time I tried it, I lasted maybe 5 seconds. But after 2 weeks, I could do a full minute without grabbing the sink. That tiny exercise did something surprising. It made me feel in control again. And I'm not alone. There's Evelyn, 76 years old. Used to walk with a cane after a bad fall 3 years ago. She started doing these little balance challenges in her kitchen. Standing with 1 foot on a folded towel while she boiled water for tea. Practicing side steps while drying the dishes. She didn't call it exercise. She called it kitchen dancing. 3 months later, her cane was still by the door, but more as decoration than necessity. You see, improving balance doesn't always look like exercise. It can be playful, gentle, part of your day, but it protects you from falls, from fractures, from fear. And speaking of protection, we have to talk about the hips. Your hips are your body's foundation. When you sit, stand, climb stairs, roll over in bed, your hips are working. But they're also one of the first places to weaken when we stop moving as much. And if you have osteoporosis, the hips are high-risk zones. You've probably heard it. A broken hip at our age isn't just a fracture. It's a major life event. Recovery is slow. Hospital stays are long. Some people don't fully bounce back. Some lose independence altogether. That's why we can't ignore the hips. But again, we're not talking about squats at the gym. We're talking simple, joint-friendly movements. Like seated leg lifts, side steps with a resistance band, or squeezing a pillow between your knees while you sit. Yes, that's a real one. It activates your inner thighs and hips. Harold, one of Alison's clients, was 82. Tall guy, used to coach basketball. But after 2 minor falls, he avoided stairs altogether. He started doing seated hip exercises during his morning TV shows. Nothing intense. Just slow movements, consistent effort. After 6 weeks, he called Alison and said, I climbed the library steps today. All 10 of them. No railing. No fear. She told me he sounded like a teenager who just passed his driver's test. That's what strength does. It gives you back choices. Freedom. Joy. But here's the part we don't always acknowledge. Movement isn't just physical. It's deeply emotional. When you lose the ability to move confidently, something shifts inside. You feel smaller. Cautious. Sometimes, invisible. But when you move again, really move, it lights something up. You remember who you are. You feel proud. Capable. Alive. One woman, Martha, once said, "I don't want to run a marathon. I just want to dance in my kitchen without holding the counter." That stuck with me. And here's the beautiful thing. You don't need to be perfect. You just need to begin. Start with posture. Support your spine. Free up those stiff joints. Build a little core power. Play with your balance. Strengthen your hips. That's the path. Not toward some big fitness goal, but toward safety, dignity, and freedom. And here's the deeper truth. You deserve to feel safe in your body. You deserve to walk without fear. You deserve to trust yourself again. So, if you're watching this and thinking, "But I've never exercised. It's too late for me." No, it's not. The body is a miraculous thing. Even in our 60s, 70s, 80s, it responds. It heals. It remembers. And so do we. So I want to invite you to pick one thing today. Not 5. Not a whole routine. Just one. Maybe it's standing on one foot while you brush. Or taking a few shoulder rolls before breakfast. Or learning how to rise from a chair without using your hands. One small shift. Each day. That's how big change begins. And if this video gave you a little nudge, a little hope, a little "I could try that," then let me ask you, what's one movement that's made you feel stronger, braver, or more you again? I'd love to hear your story in the comments. Maybe someone else needs to hear it, too. And if this helped you even just a little, click that like button so more people can find it. Or share it with a friend who's been feeling unsure in their body lately. And if you'd like more videos like this, gentle guidance, real stories, made with older adults in mind, go ahead and subscribe. We're building a community here, one where movement isn't about looking younger. It's about feeling alive. Until next time, take care of yourself. And remember, you don't have to move fast. You just have to keep moving.